So today, we are going to tackle a concept that's, well, it's pretty much a scientific punchline: perpetual motion. But what if the joke is actually on us? What if the very way we define this thing is what's blinding us to one of the biggest, most powerful, and totally untapped energy sources right here on our planet?
Yeah, I know what you're thinking. Perpetual motion machines, right? That's the stuff of, scam artists and broken laws of physics. But hold on. What if the only reason we think it's impossible is that we've completely forgotten what those two words, perpetual motion, originally meant?
So that's where we're going to start. Right now, if you say perpetual motion to a scientist, it's taboo. It's just shorthand for something that breaks the laws of thermodynamics. End of story. But you know what? It wasn't always like that. To really get this, we've got to go back and see how a simple, elegant description of nature got all tangled up with the idea of an impossible machine.
So on one side, you've got the modern idea, right? A closed system, a little box trying to magically create energy out of thin air. Total impossibility. But the original meaning, wow, it was so much bigger than that. It was just continuous motion, motion that happens all by itself in nature. Think about the planets orbiting the sun or the constant pull of the tides. That was the real perpetual motion. And look, this is not just some nerdy argument about words. This tight, narrow definition we use today, it's like it puts blinders on us. It literally stops us from even seeing these huge, non-stop movements that are happening all around us every single moment out there in the real world.
Okay, so let's do it. Let's strip away all that modern baggage and go right back to the beginning. It's time for a redefinition, to see what perpetual motion really meant before it became, a four-letter word in science.
The Latin roots are they're beautiful and simple. Perpetuus moto. Notice something? There's nothing in there about infinite energy or breaking the laws of physics. Nope. It just means continuous, unbroken movement, motion that keeps on going. It was never, ever a design for some magic box. It was just a way to describe nature.
And for literally thousands of years, that's all it was. It was used to describe the heavens, that incredible, eternal dance of the planets. It wasn't until the industrial age that the meaning got twisted. It got co-opted, used to sell these scammy, man-made machines. And yeah, those things were correctly called out as being totally impossible.
And this right here, this is the key. The scientific community had to draw a line in the sand. They created a super strict definition to shut down all the snake oil salesmen and to protect the laws of thermodynamics. But, and this is so important, they weren't trying to say something new about nature itself. They were just building a fence, a really strong fence, to keep out the scam.
Okay, so if perpetual motion just means continuous natural movement, then what's the biggest, baddest example we've got? Well, you're standing on it, our own planet. Earth is this unbelievable engine, and it is always in motion. Just think about it for a second. The Earth is spinning, the Moon is orbiting, and the gravity between them has them locked in this constant, powerful dance. This is not a quiet, static system. It's a full-blown engine. It's what makes our ocean swell and surge with the tides, and in doing so, it's losing or dissipating these crazy amounts of energy every single second. This engine was fired up long before we ever showed up, and it's going to keep on running long after we're gone.
So how does it work? Well, the whole energy flow kicks off with that constant gravitational tug-of-war between the Earth and Moon. That creates what's called a tidal potential. And listen, we're not just talking about waves lapping at the shore. This force literally reshapes the entire ocean, all of it. And all that churning and movement, that's the planet's own spin energy being used up, turned into motion and heat. That energy is being spent right now, whether we do anything with it or not.
And the scale of this thing, it's just mind-boggling. I mean, with all that energy being spent, you'd think the Earth would be slowing down, right? So how much does it slow our planet's rotation? Get this, a few milliseconds per century. The energy source here is so unbelievably massive that for you and me, on any human timescale, it is, for all intents and purposes, perpetual.
All right, so the energy is there. It's real. It's happening. The big question is, how on earth could we tap into it? Well, the key isn't some futuristic, complex machine. It's actually a fundamental force we all learned about in, elementary school. Buoyancy.
Now, hang on. We have to be super, super clear about this next part. This is critical. Buoyancy does not create energy. It's not a power source. Full stop.
Instead, I want you to think of it like a translator. Yeah, a translator. It's just a passive tool that takes one type of motion, like the huge movement of the ocean tides, and it just translates it into a different kind of motion.
Here's how it works. It's all because of a really basic fact. Gravity pulls on things differently depending on their density. So, imagine the ocean swelling up with the tide. If you have a less dense, buoyant object in that water, it's going to get pushed around. It has no choice but to move with the water, to rise and fall. See, it's not creating power, it's just translating the ocean's own movement into useful mechanical work.
Okay, so let's tie this all together. When you restore the real meaning of perpetual motion, and you start to see buoyancy as this natural translator, well, you end up with a completely new way of looking at energy.
The old scam machine, right? That's a closed box. It's trying to make something from nothing. Impossible. But what we're talking about here is an open system. Just picture a device, way down in the ocean, that isn't trying to make energy. It's just intercepting a tiny, tiny piece of the energy that the planet is already spending through the tides. Honestly, it's no different than a windmill catching a bit of wind that was going to blow by anyway.
And there's this quote from the source material that it nails it. It says, "Engineering does not create the dance, it merely joins it." I love that. The goal isn't to invent some new power source or to fight against nature. It's just to design a clever way to join in on this massive, nonstop, perpetual dance that our planet is already doing.
So when you think about it, the final question isn't, is perpetual motion possible? We've got that all wrong. The real question is, what other perpetual motions are happening all around us right now? What other planetary dances are we totally blind to? Just because somebody somewhere taught us not to even look for them.